All right, so if you click on edit type, or I'm sorry, you click on the material, it'll open up this dialog box, and we're going to take the one that says Earth, and we're going to duplicate it, and then we're going to rename it. Did not mean to do that. All right. Got an extra something in there I don't need. All right, so what we're going to do is check our render appearance, and it is really, really dark. And we're going to change our material for it. So we're going to go to Appearance tab, and we're going to click on this little swatch here. I'm sorry, pick below the swatch on the word, and it's going to open up your other material. So it's going to go right to the ones that are for site work. So there's probably about a good 10, 12 choices of grass to pick. So I'm just going to pick this first one, which is Bermuda grass. I'm going to hit open, hit apply, hit OK, and there we have it. I have grass. All right, so I'm going to take a look here from site again. Looks like all my little points disappeared. It's all right. Okay, so from the site level, I'm going to go ahead and put in a driveway. And since my front door is here, I'm going to put my driveway here and utilize the floor tool in order to create that. So there's two different ways of doing it. You can actually use the floor tool, or you can also go to master the site and also use a sub-region. Now what I found with the sub-region is that it doesn't always accept all the materials that you choose for something. So I'm going to use it anyway. It's probably going to give me an error, but that's okay. And the sub-region actually has to be on this topo surface that you're using. And so I'm gonna put that there. I'm not gonna have a 25-foot wide driveway. I'm just gonna tighten this up a little bit. I'm gonna go about 15 feet. All right there. And I'm gonna go ahead and make me a little walkway here. And you can always use the offset tool. And I'm gonna make that 3 feet. That and use trim. I'm kind of guessing where the opening is, but it's more toward the middle. So I'm gonna go off of that, and I'm gonna close it up right here. In fact, let me draw a line here instead. So I'm gonna draw a line there instead, and I'm gonna use the trim tool to close that up. All right, so here I'm gonna use the trim tool, and it's gonna cut part of that out. And I'm just gonna select unjoin elements. I'm just gonna redraw the line, Rather than using the split tool to do that, it makes a little bit more sense to go ahead and use the other tool. All right, so for our category, it's not going to be grass. I'm going to use asphalt. And if you can't find asphalt, you might have to do concrete. So we'll do concrete cast in place gray. It's kind of got a sandy pattern to it. On the appearance, we can always change it to something else. So we can change it to the one that's an aggregate, which is basically the one that's kind of poured into place. Yes, of course, I'll use that one just to see what it looks like. And I'm going to hit apply. And okay. And I'm going to hit the check. So it didn't give me an error. So that's a good thing. And the good thing about using the subregion is that it actually, whatever the contour is, it actually follows the contour versus using a floor where you actually have to try to manipulate the floor to be thick enough to stick into the terrain surface or not. All right, so it looks like that looks pretty good. All right, so next I'll go to my site level. I'm gonna add a little bit of site components to this, such as trees and so forth. So I'm gonna go with this city as tree, and you can use a variety of them, but don't put 2,000 trees on your lot, because the problem with that is that they will slow your computer up. I think I'll put that on there instead. So they're just kind of random. Take a look at it in 3D. And now they don't really look like a whole lot when you first put them in like this. So don't panic because they don't look good. You don't really see what they really look like until you render or you put it in a realistic view. So once you put it in realistic, it'll generate a more realistic view for it. So that's what it really looks like. All right, so our levels, we're going to hide those because we don't want to see those in any renders or anything. So you can even see if you use wood or brick, then you can see the actual material. All right, so that. All right, so I'm gonna see if I can find some bushes to go along the edges of the house. Load family. I'm gonna go back to libraries. I think. Here we go. All right, so under planting, see what we got under there. Yeah, we got a little bush here. And there's another little shrub. So I'm gonna use this little shrub here. I'm gonna place some from the site level because if I put them using from the other view, it's really hard to tell where they're going sometimes. So we're just gonna use this view instead. All right, so that's my wall. So I'm just gonna kind of come out a little bit and put a few of these. I'm gonna do a little mix up right there, like so. All right, so put a few shrubs here and there. I think I'll put a couple of them on the driveway too. Um, I'm not sure if I can make them any smaller, so I think I'm gonna try to make them a little bit smaller just to see what I can do with it. Copy a couple along here. So these might be the ones that I actually change up to being a little bit smaller. So let's see how this is gonna work. I don't want to do that, but let's see. Edit type, duplicate. Mhm. All right, I'll duplicate it. Let's see what I can do with this. So I'm gonna change the type or not. And that's not gonna work. And it might not have the right parameters to it in order to actually change the size of it. So that might be something I may have to use the scale tool for. So I'm going to a 3D view, go into a front view to see what it does here. And oh, well, they're not really that big anyway. They're actually smaller than what I thought they were, unless they're sunk into the ground, which could be a possibility. And some of them are. So you may have to go along if you change any of your points. You may have to kind of go along and I didn't need them there anyway. All right, so our walkway is a little bit right there. So let's see how this is looking. So it's a little tricky sometimes to get things just right. Every once in a while you may have to cross a few of them over. You kind of get what you're looking for. So, let's see how that kind of looks. I'm grouping them together. And again, you have to sometimes go to your front elevation to kind of look at things to see if they're where you think they are. And you might have to change the offset elevation. That might be easier to do. Kind of drag it. All right. So they're not as close as I wanted them to be. You can always kind of move them and adjust them a little bit more. All right, so now we're right on 16 minutes here. So, all right, so next step, if you want to add a car or something to the driveway, you can, and that is done by inserting a car from Entourage. So that's a component, load family. So I'm gonna load this little Beetle. And there are other cars. I'll give you other cars later on. I'll add these three. And you will have to kind of check to see what that car, if it's not floating in the air. Very interesting that it's floating. All right, so we'll do another component. This time we'll do Entourage. So we'll add, I just saw her, Miss Cynthia, to the driveway. Hopefully she's not the one sitting down. I think she is. So we can't use that one. How about Tina? So we'll add Tina to the driveway. And we'll add Dwayne. So it's kind of hard to tell which way they're facing once you put it in realistic view. So we'll see that he's kind of looking out in the yard. And she is, I guess they're looking out and waiting on someone. So we have a couple standing outside and looking and waiting. So we'll go ahead with that. And we're going to render a picture. So I'm just going to put it back on shaded. And this time I'm going to use a camera. I'm going to give it a target. And I'm going to render in the cloud. And rendering in the cloud is going to come out much better than rendering on the computer. So to render, you're going to go to View. You got two options. So you got render in cloud. So I'm going to render on the computer first, just to kind of show you what it looks like. So I'm going to click on render. And not really going to change too much here. So the in-session lighting, we can add on background. That'll be something that we learn how to do later on. We'll take it off draft. We'll put it on high. And then we'll render. So while it's rendering, I'm going to pause the video until it's done. All right, so it didn't take it that long. So that was on high, and it actually don't look too bad. Your product could be a little bit better. Oh, and it's still rendering. So it's at 65% right now. So I'm not really seeing a big difference in between 65, 70% and the 100% that it's about to approach right now. All right, so don't really see that big of a difference in it. But one thing to do is to kind of zoom in and make sure that your people are not embedded in the ground. All right, so it is kind of choppy looking, so it's not really that good of a render. So we're going to see the difference between rendering in the cloud. All right, so when it renders in the cloud, you may have to set up an account. So you might have to sign in, which I thought I already was. And hopefully I can remember my password. Oh yeah, I think so. Is it? So it's going to send your OTP, which is the confirmation thing when you register. All right, so it's going to change my username to match. All right, so we're just going to hit continue. And I'm not going to really change anything here. And because if you do, it's going to require you to have credits. So we're just going to render on the basic settings. And you're going to see the difference between this and the last one. And I'll pause while it's doing that. So you'll see it do that. And it'll go off. And then up at the top here, you'll see it spinning. All right, so we're kind of waiting on that one to process. This is another project that I've done in the past. This one's of a church, and this is a panoramic view of the interior during the day. So none of the lighting is on except for the sconce lighting on the side. So this is the difference between doing rendering online and rendering on the desktop. So I think all these are panoramics. Not that one. And this is something you can play around with, and you can also download these to use in a presentation, which is always pretty cool to be able to do. So we're going to go back and look and see where our render is. So let's see. It looks like it may be still running. Oh, this is still on the wrong one. Oh, there we go. So there we go. So now you can kind of see that rendering in the cloud is a little bit better than rendering on the desktop computer. So if you compare the two, I don't think I saved the one for. Let's see. Oh, I don't think that you can see this. So let's see here. Yeah. All right. So you can kind of see that it's a little bit better to render in the cloud than it is to render on the computer. There's no zooming or anything like that. And I guess I didn't really show you what thought I was showing you before with the panoramics. Yeah, this is the example I was trying to show you before. Didn't realize that it wasn't on the same screen. So you can also do a panoramic of any design. And this is of a building that I did, a proposal, a proposal church that I did a while back. And also another this one didn't really turn out that good because it's a complex, but it was just too far off to really get any good design on it. But it's a nighttime rendering of that same complex. So they're not bad. So it's something that you can consider uh, when you're using for design tool. So let's see what this design is here. Oh, this is of a house. Refrigerator looks like it's on fire, but apart from that, it doesn't look too bad. And this is from a much larger project that I think I've shown you before. The best one out of all these is this nighttime rendering right here. And that one. That's a pretty nice one too. So as you see, the interior renderings, well, I mean the rendering in the cloud is a whole lot better than rendering on the desktop. You get a lot more out of it. So if you want to do interiors, you're gonna have to add some furniture. You got to add a ceiling, and you got to add some lighting in order to get a good rendering. Because if there weren't any lights in here, this rendering would have just been totally black and barely be able to see anything because it's only picking up the light that actually would shine through a window. All right. So otherwise from that, that is it.